So going back through the curriculum and our questions, our conversation last week, which was really good. In two instances, as you were introducing the meat of the curriculum, you talked about the Fetter 4 and 5 pushing and pulling on images when there's just a raw sensation of seeing, and then pushing and pulling on images in order to put down some kind of foundation to believe in, let's say. That at some point you come to realize that, and then it is just sound happening, and then the sound dissolves. You use that phrase, and then the sound dissolves twice in our conversation during last week's meeting, or maybe it was it with Todd? I don't know. Anyway,
I can't remember either.
I don't either, but
I can't remember so much since 10 minutes ago. So
I got you.
I believe you.
Neither can I, but for once I wrote notes because I know I can't count on myself to remember this stuff. And then again, a little bit later on in that same conversation about Fetter 4, 5, 6, and 7 all being related, which was, I loved that part. When you see that there's no pushing and pulling needed or happening or however, then it's just sound happening, and then the sound dissolves. So you use that, then the sound dissolves twice. And I got to thinking, okay, the question I have is, what were you meaning by that? Are you meaning that, sound arises out of nothing and disappears into nothing? That's the dissolution. Or are you meaning that somehow there's some additional dissolution?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Go.
Yeah. Okay. It's multiple things because it's in different layers, depending on which fetter we talk about. 4, 5, there's a sound of a dog barking, right? First of all, there's the I don't like the dog, and it's the neighbor's dog, and I hate the neighbor, and they shouldn't have the dog, and all of that. That out of the way, there's a dog barking. Then there's a sound when the sound begins and when the sound ends. That means that we are still attached to the 4, 5, where there's I want a dog bark to sound in a certain way. Like Todd, he mentioned in the sofa set that if it has been like, you heard something fall, if it had been like, and I said, it was the soap dispenser, that would not correlate. And it's the same thing we have with any sound, that it needs to match the image that we have in our mind. So if you hear a dog bark and somebody says, that's an elephant, you're going to go, no. And that's the 4, 5, that you want it to be in a certain way. It cannot be in another way. That needs to be let go too. Which means that now there's not even a label on the sound anymore. The next thing we're going to explore is the beginning of the sound. So it's kind of like if I have these two objects here. So there's a pen here, density here, and there's a finger here. In between here, there's nothingness, right? So there's a density in the field and a density in the field, perceived as a density in the field. There's not, but we say it's experienced as a density and less density in the field here. So the closer that the finger goes to the pen, the distance between those two become less, and until both of them are touching. That is the same that is happening with all the sense fields. So it's like there's a silence and a sound beginning, and a sound happening, and a sound ending, and silence when we talk about a dog bark, right? In the 7th fetter, that can only happen if you apply time. And that's why I did my favorite song. No, that was in this group. It was in another group. I did my favorite song, 7 fetter song. Let me sing you a 7 fetter song. If you and 7th fetter, you would not realize that that is just one tone, because the 7th fetter is the solving time, which means that when you hear a sound, we attach time to it. You can only know that I just said one tone by attaching time to it. When you dissolve time, that was not one tone, that was a snippet of a song. And that's the same thing we do with the sound with the dog bark. So if you remove time, there's not silence, sound, and silence. There's just this, where there's no anything that could be any different, no attachment, no dissolving of anything. It's just this. Then when the dog bark happens with the seventh feather, there's no adding of anything because it is as it is. There's nothing that is added to it. There's nothing that could be subtracted to it. So there's no sound, which is what I mean. It's dissolved because there's nothing different. And after the dog bark, it's the same thing, same experience. There's no experience and a memory of a dog bark, which means that nothing can ever annoy you because there's no comparison with anything. You can only compare with things when you use time. In the seventh feather, when we apply the seventh feather, nothing can annoy you. Nothing can be, it's what I'm talking about with same experience if you're having a root canal or warm bath. Same experience because there's no comparison in time with anything. And that is what I mean with it dissolving. That there's nothing that has any structure because structure can only happen in a comparison with time. So, and that is what I mean with dissolving.
Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful. Such a simple explanation, and it just absolutely makes so much sense. Oh my gosh. Ooh, that's profound.
Thank you.
So, so when you hear people say, like they've broken the fetters, but they still get annoyed,
Mm.
it's like, okay, really? I'm not trying to get in a position where I evaluate things, but I get confused by
Yeah,
hearing people say stuff like that.
yeah, I understand. I think the worst thing we can do in anything in life is compare, you know? First of all, who are we to question anybody's experience?
Well,
And
exactly. I mean, annoyance can be there. It can be like
yeah,
a
but
momentary.
then it's not annoyance, is it?
No, it's just a label, right?
No, 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 no. In seven feather, it's not even annoyance. It can't
Mm,
be annoyance because you can only have annoyance if you have a comparison with anything. Which
sure.
means you can't be annoyed. You can't be annoyed. Anybody can say anything that can annoy you. So you can't say all the feathers have fallen, but I'm still getting annoyed. How would you know if all the feathers have fallen?
Exactly.
The sixth feather is not
Exactly.
the 10th feather is not knowing. You do not know what it means to be annoyed.
Right,
Do
right,
not know
right.
what it means not to be annoyed because
Thank
all
you.
the
Thank
levels
you.
are gone. So when somebody says all the feathers have dropped and I still get aggravated and annoyed, you can't have any opinion about that. If all the feathers have fallen and somebody says that, you can't have any opinion about it because it's their experience, and who are you to know?
Right. Well, I haven't broken the 10th fetter, so I hear
So
that,
you're still super judgmental and
well, yeah, when I hear that, and I just get like confused, like,
yeah, I know, and it's one of the things that we talk a lot about. How can we support people in knowing that you cannot compare with anything? And if anybody says that the awakening experience is like being on shrooms day and night, then do not compare with that. It's not your experience, it's their experience. Just like
yeah,
there are, you know, 9 billion ways of feeling barefoot walking in the grass, it's the same with the awakening. We cannot compare our experience with anyone. And for some
exactly.
people, it's like, I can hear people sit and talk about the awakening going like, wow, what a ride. Not my experience at all. But who am I to judge and say that it can't be or it's not right or anything, But I understand that it can be immensely confusing. And I mean, uh, we listened to somebody, I can't remember, it's a while ago now with Todd, where he said, I don't think I have broken any of the fetters. If that is awakening, I haven't broken anything. It's just, I know, it's super, super confusing, but
Yeah.
comparison is the worst thing we can do.
Well, the beauty of the statement that you make over and over and just did is set everything free
Yeah.
to be what it is. And yeah, that's really lovely. And like you said, if yeah, if there's comparison, there's time, and it's just, yeah, you're walking down a different road. It's
Yeah,
okay.
and maybe not. Maybe the road is just, this wet grass is just experienced like that. That wet grass is experienced in on somebody else's bare feet differently, you know?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And confusion is kind of fun. It's like, oh, wow, okay, what's going on? Like, oh, wow, confusion. This is really juicy. It feels juicy.
Yeah, but confusion can only happen if you have an expectation to things being in a certain way.
And that's 4 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the great thing about expectation is that you always put yourself as a victim, you know? It's super wonderful to experience when you have expectations because you have put yourself in in a seat that is lower than what than understand me right, than what you actually are sitting in. So why is
Yes.
that? Why is that? You
Yeah,
know,
that's beautiful.
why is that need suddenly there that wasn't there before, you know?
I mean,
Expectation, yeah.
I would just say, I'd say confusion maybe is, I don't know, it
Confusion is
doesn't always,
confusion
go
is
ahead.
it's expectation, yeah. That because you
That
can
doesn't,
always
that's so weird. It doesn't feel like expectation,
but
but
look,
you're
but
going in
slow
with
down,
a,
slow down, slow down, slow down. If you have if you're confused, then it's
mm,
because something is in a different way than you expected it to be.
right, right. That's an
So so
expectation.
yeah, so you expected awakening to be that there's no annoyance and irritation left anywhere. And then somebody says, I have passed all the 10 fetters and I get annoyed all the time at my neighbor because he is a jerk. Then you will be confused because you had an expectation about awakening, meaning that you do not get annoyed and do not think the neighbors is a jerk. So your expectation is tied into the awakening experience.
Yes, yes. I see that.
And by setting you free and setting others free, anybody can experience it in whichever way they're experiencing it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's, I mean, there's no doubt about the power of those words. No doubt. Set everybody and everything free to be,
Yeah, as it is.
just to be.
Yeah, yeah.
I love that.
And
So,
if somebody says that, you know, I'm judging my neighbor and I have passed all the 10 feathers and annoyance is still happening and that is my experience, then it's just like, wow, okay, amazing.
yeah, right, exactly. That, oh boy, that just feels so good
Yeah.
to hear that and have it. Because as you know, as much as I love the POK community, there's a lot of kind of community stuff that, like, I'm not trying to, yeah, be critical or anything, but I'm trying to get super clear about the influences that are seemingly, yeah, and it's, I mean, I'm not trying to be a victim here. That sounds like victimhood. Anyway, okay, I'm going to
Well,
shut up.
but sweetheart, Lisa, you also need to set yourself free now because if you have a dissonance and something is happening and it's giving a dissonance in the body and you can feel that there's something not right, then be honest and investigate. Don't be spiritual arrogant and going
Mm,
like I'm not supposed to feel anything about anyone. Don't be spiritual arrogant. If you feel
mm,
something, be honest, be authentic. I feel something, I need help with what I'm feeling, I can't place it, and it really bothers me. Then reach out to somebody that you trust and
mhm,
then talk
mhm.
about it. Talk about it.
Yes, yes, yes.
You're not lesser than by experiencing confusion. It's completely fine. Reach out and speak to someone you trust. I'm happy to, you know, if you want to talk and we can pause the recording and all of that. Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, but no, it's not only to you, it's to everyone. If anybody wants to talk about something and you want the recording paused, then just tell me we're pausing the recording.
And the
Uh,
thing about this to me too, Pernilla, is that these things are so subtle. In other
yes.
words, it's like they sneak around and poison the water or something. They're very, very subtle and tasteless. And yeah, so yeah, but there's definitely something.
If you pick up on something, remember that the mirror is in you, the bubble of reality is in
Yes.
you, that there's something in you that is affecting by somebody going like, "Oh, did you see what Janice did the other day in a group?" If you hear
Yeah.
that and you feel in you going like, I can't deal with that, then you know, be authentic. This is what is happening right now. I have on multiple occasions when people start to talk about other people and not they're saying I'm so sorry to interrupt. I'm not comfortable talking about other people that are not here. Could we wait until Janice is here and then talk about it out in the open? And then that completely kills, and then they can talk about me behind my back when I'm not there anymore. But it's about that being completely clear on your boundaries, what you are fine with and not fine with.
Can I jump in here, if I may?
Yes,
Only because
yes,
I
yes,
want to
yes.
talk
Let me just
about
argue
is,
because you're wonderful. Just to say, admin. Hello, Leona.
sorry, I don't want to jump the queue, but it's just relevant to what you're talking about, because I'm kind of conflicted a bit in the same way as Lisa is, because Christiana's my guide and Kevin Shelenek's approach is very linear. And it's really lovely to hear how you see it, but it's completely a different view that he takes, that you simply can't have dropped a later fetter if there's still frustration or anger. And I believe I've dropped fetter 8 now. And I'm just kind of clarifying that with Christiana, just letting things settle. And yet there is still some, even though 4-5 is completely weakened, and there's still frustration happens, but it's not quite the same as it used to be. And I'm a bit conflicted because both approaches are saying different things about it.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify where it starts to be, dissonance, or because Kevin has in a POK meeting, Kevin Shannon, like he has in a POK meeting said that 8 years after all the 10 feathers dropped, he went into therapy because he felt that his life was a zero-sum game. He could not give a compliment to another person without feeling that he went into minus. So he can't both say that you cannot drop all the 10 feathers until there's nothing left, and at the same time say, accept me. So there's a dissonance in it.
Mm.
And what I'm saying is that I completely understand what he's talking about. It's why we are working with the feathers in a different way. So it would have welcomed Kevin. So he could have looked into the trauma earlier. And instead of seeing it as a ladder and feeling that, what is it Christiana saying now, that trauma is the 11th fetter? Instead of saying that and starting to create more stuff outside of what the Buddha created, then seeing that, okay, we just work with things in a different way where it's more circular. Maybe you can't look into deeper trauma until you have released the sense of a deeper I in the 8th fetter. And then you can go back. Or maybe you can't work with releasing boundaries until you realize that, oh my goodness, I'm thinking life is a zero-sum game. If I give you a compliment, I'm in minus. That's why I cannot release the boundaries, which means back to the 2nd fetter, work with my trauma. Yeah. So I'm not saying that Kevin and Christian, the way that they're working with it is not right, because it has helped hundreds of people. It's super, super useful for a lot of people.
Mhm.
I'm just saying that it's important to stay in your own lane and experience what it is you're experiencing. And
I
and
completely
something
agree,
and
because
some
I'm not in control. Yeah,
Exactly,
exactly.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Some things is useful sometimes, other things are useful other times. Sometimes you want to listen to Kendrick Lamar, and other times it's, Vivaldi. It's some things are useful for different things. And the way that we work with the feathers is trying to make it as organic and flowing and alive as possible, where you're not limiting yourself into a little confined box, but you allow to set things free and allow what is coming up to come up, like the conversation we're having now. There's a conflict lying in you. Okay, out in the open with it. There's no talking bad about anybody or holding anything against anyone. It's just experiencing things in our own way, making it alive and making it, actual in the lived experience.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
It's also a different way of working with it, because Kevin and Christiane are very much working with it that you pick it up 4 or 5 times a day, and between that you don't really do it. The way Todd and I do it is you live it. you know? It's the fetters, every single breath you take, every single exhalation you do, everything you pick up, everything you eat, the way you talk on the phone, the fetters are present all the time in your lived experience. And that is why it's the only way you can do it when you don't have any boundaries between them, but allowed to step in and out of them all the time because they're present all the time. It's just the fetters are not real. It's just concepts. It's 10 different ways of identifying. Let's look at all 10 right away, work with all 10 right away, and see what becomes alive when we do that. It's just a different way. But Leona, I would like to get back to you said something. Could you repeat the part about what was it you said? Could you remember what you said? I didn't make a note. I didn't make a note. It was something about that you still felt
Oh,
some
I still can feel frustration, but I think it's falling apart, but there's still something left there. So it's puzzling me how I can be a non-existence where nothing exists, and there is no me anymore, and there's nothing out there, and yet I'm still able to get frustrated.
how is the frustration felt?
It's been a while, but it was like an explosion inside.
Okay,
But now it's not quite like that.
can you give me an example of now how it feels?
It was, I haven't had frustration for a bit, but I felt really hurt and sad by something.
Those are emotions and thoughts.
Yeah.
What is so a sensory experience because it's a feedback loop. So there's a thought, hurt and sad. How is that felt into the body?
Oh, it feels here. God, it's hard to describe it. Like there's a blanket and there's a sort of weight.
So if you detach the thought of this blanket that you have here being hurt, if you detach that thought about it and just sit with a sensory experience of something happening here, then you feel how this here change because it's no longer restricted by the label hurt. And then it will start to morph. And the moment it starts to morph and be something else, it's going to activate a feedback loop up to a thought saying, it has moved into my stomach. Now I'm nauseated, says the label. So you detach the label, go into the sensation in the body, feel that it's more about solar plexus now. And it's more like, constricting. Then you do the same thing without the label. You detach the label and you sit with the sensory experience of something happening in the solar plexus in this area right here. And when you don't have any label attached to it, it takes between 7 to 11 seconds for it to morph into something else, which again will activate the feedback loop up to a thought. And if you keep following that around, at the end, all of it is dissolved. And whatever irritated or annoyed you is not a factor anymore.
Yeah, it's not a factor anymore when you've done that, but in the moment it was. And I'm aware that if you take away the label and you just sit with sensation, then it can change and resolve itself. But that doesn't happen in that moment of frustration. When I'm overwhelmed, I'm autistic as well, so there's too much information coming in. But anyway, it is changing, but I'm just kind of watching it, and I was kind of puzzled by how can nothing exist, and yet there's this still something running itself out of the system, I think. But
Yeah, because
my inner guidance said, don't worry, it will resolve itself.
yeah, the most important, in my opinion, the most important part is the embodiment of it. It's that going into the body all the time, detaching the thought all the time, going into the body, and also as an OT, going into the sensory experience all the time, detached. So I just stay with the meat suit. And there's no emotions or anything with it. It's just experience happening in the meat suit, different sensations happening in the meat suit. And very, very often, pictures of childhood or pictures of previous experiences come up, and then I go with it. When we come to the seventh fetter, I'm walking you through how you time travel into previous experiences and dissolve it in the time when is that. And that is when the memory is becoming a complete blank slate, that there's nothing there anymore. But yeah, I would be curious if you would be up for it, looking into when hopefully it will happen to. I hope you're gonna get super irritated very shortly, and then you have the, can do the exercise and really let go of the mind and feeling into the body, and for those 7 to 11 seconds, just stay with that and see where it takes you. I'm super, super curious about that.
I mean, I do that. I do that when I, if something comes.
Yeah.
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 So Leona, in a way, it kind of sounds like, and this is just, from my bubble of reality, that you're making a momentary frustration, kind of making it into a problem. Is that the way it feels like? It's a problem to have a frustration, or maybe it's more just about, like you said, it's like, how could this be possible? Based
I
on
think that's changed. I was a bit fixated on it a while ago, and it was a problem. So you're absolutely right. I'm not sure that it is, because I'm not sure how it's unfolding now, because it hasn't happened recently, but I'm just kind of keeping an eye on it. Yeah, because I mean, I've done a lot of work on 4-5, a lot of work, as you know.
Yeah, you're absolute 4 and 5 queen. If anybody wants a good guide or talk to somebody that knows about 4-5 work, it's definitely Leona. She's the 4-5 queen. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you, both of you. I love you guys so much. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Wonderful.